That got me excited about how can I use these tools more, which I think is so important for companies and teams to adopt these new tools because they can change the way we work and the way we think about work, is for leaders to be embracing them and talking about it, right, in the open.
Scott, welcome to Tech Talks today. Appreciate you coming into the office and sharing more about your journey, your company, and where you really see the future come into the industry. So appreciate you taking the time to come talk today.
It's great to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Absolutely. If you could, real quick, just share a bit about your company itself.
Okay.
What's your elevator pitch?
Yeah.
What's your focus? And what really drove you from the work that you were doing to starting your own business?
Yeah. So I'm the founder of Product 208. We're a consulting firm based in Boise, hence the 208. My mission really is to help early stage startups and businesses build prototypes, applications, MVPs that really matter. I have a background way back in the day in software development, and then most recently spent the last decade, almost 15 years in product management, product leadership roles. So when I work with clients, I pull in that software background as a foundation and product management, product best practices.
That's fantastic. I mean, you're really combining the two elements that most people don't have. Either they have the vision of what they want to build and they don't know how to build it because they don't have the development background, or they have the development background and they're building it, but they don't know how to build it properly or craft a vision for the product that they're looking to build. So it's a fantastic background to combine. And so you left corporate, so to speak, and hung up your own shingle.
Yep.
Focusing on these early stage startups. Now, why that demographic?
A couple of things. One, I think we moved to Boise almost 30 years ago, right? And that year, Boise was on the Newsweek magazine cover article, a list of top up-and-coming tech cities. Mm-hmm. And, we've always been an up-and-coming tech city, right? And we've had some great success, but I'm really excited by the energy and the opportunity that early-stage businesses have for the community, for the valley, and to impact people. So wanting to work with those businesses, and I think it's also they need what I can offer more than an established business. They may not always recognize it, that they need it, or have a willingness to pay for it. But I think there's a real need there, and so much of the success of a startup comes from being able to find product market fit and then execute on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've been in that vein. You have been active with Trailhead, which is a entrepreneur support, and I won't say incubator because it doesn't really incubate, but it's a networking and support.
It's an amazing resource for entrepreneurs of any stage. I participated in a program and spoke. It was now I'm blanking on the name of the program, but it was geared towards first-time entrepreneurs, right? And these are folks from all different walks of life with all different types of products, and they have an idea. And really helping them understand, is the first time, like, how do you validate this idea, right? An idea is great, a new solution is great, but it's not viable if it doesn't solve a problem that is urgent in the market, right? That is pervasive, so that there's a market for it and that people are willing to pay for, right? So before you go spend a lot of time and money to build a solution, like, how do you validate that? And then we walked in a series of different sessions with different guest speakers, walked through different ways to validate, different problems to be concerned with. And then the last session that I spoke at was on really building an MVP or a prototype, whether that be a bunch of cardboard mapping for a physical product, right?
Yeah.
It just is a proof of concept and for further validation, or a software MVP that you can build. These days you could build it in a weekend with AI codegen tools, which is what I'm really fascinated and excited about right now.
Yeah, and that's really been that's the core offering that
Yeah.
you're producing at Product 208 is that heavy leaning into AI to build something viable quickly.
Yeah.
Shortest amount of time to the most useful piece of product that you can build to validate.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's been an evolution for me and for the business over the last 12, 15, 18 months. Right.
Mm-hmm.
When I started, my thesis was just product management consulting, right, and sort of fractional product leadership, product management.
Got it.
And then I had a client earlier this year. I worked with LeanLaw with Jonathan Fishman and the rest of the crew, and they were. I've got to give credit to Jonathan. Like he was really bullish on AI and the ability to impact, not necessarily in the product, but impact how we did everything in the company. And he, as a leader, was talking about it all the time, how he was using it, which I think is so important for companies and teams to adopt these new tools because they can change the way we work and the way we think about work, is for leaders to be embracing them and talking about it, right, in the open. And he challenged everyone to use AI in their daily life. And we had been talking about this feature for a new way for legal. So LeanLaw's business is law firms, right, and legal billing, and for law firms to bill their clients. And we'd had this idea, or they had this idea for a long time, and it finally sort of bubbled up to the top from a priority perspective. I spent with Fred Willerup, the head of engineering, almost a day, sort of how did we fit this into our data architecture, right, into the data model. And we had two different ideas, and then I spent about 3 hours prototyping what this would look like. And I didn't have access to our application, so I think I was using Bolt as the codegen tool, and took some screenshots. And I said, build an app that looks like this. Okay, now it took a screenshot of another screen, and I add this there, and link the main menu to here. And then from there, I just prompted to build out this new billing invoicing workflow. And in about 4 hours, I had the things wired together, and they worked. It wasn't actually an application or a product, but I made a Loom video, shared it with the team. Like, hey guys, this is what I looked at. Like, what do you think about how this workflow would work? The next day, Jonathan was on a call with a client, and this concept came up. So we pulled up the Loom video, and we immediately got feedback. Right now, in my experience in the past, right, even if we were just doing Figma wireframes, it would have taken a couple of days for a designer to understand what we were talking about, to build those wireframes and build it all in. The fidelity might have been better, but the time to value and to feedback was so much better, and it was so powerful, and really, really exciting. And that got me excited about how can I use these tools more, and sort of built it from there.
What I'm really hearing, that's an amazing story, and what I'm really hearing in that is a huge shift in process is, one, you had every tool that you needed to craft your vision how you saw it directly. You did not need to translate it to a designer and then have them implement it with their own biases and views and things like that into Figma, and then come back, and then again you go through that review cycle of like, yeah, that's kind of what I meant, but not really. Tweak this, tweak that. It's like, no, right there that afternoon, she's like, here's my vision translated directly to paper. Yep. And AI is giving that access to everyone.
Yeah. And I mean, it's really leveling the playing field and the opportunities for whether it be a product manager or a designer or someone who doesn't work in tech, right? And I sort of liken it to, we all tend to do so much in Excel, right? Excel becomes a tool, and once you learn how to discover how to write formulas, you can build all this stuff, right? And so people in all different roles are building elaborate data models and mini applications in Excel. Now you can do that with so much more complexity and maturity with a little mini app that maybe you just use it internally, maybe you just use it for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. You can vibe code whatever you want.
Yeah.
Personally, so I play pickleball.
Okay.
Can't claim to be good at pickleball. But one thing that I think most people who play recognize is that there's a lot of requirement on the players to remember, score, who's serving, who served last, so on and so forth. And there's some solutions out there that are pretty physical. You flip charts with numbers, right? And you have to walk up to the net, flip it, and then mess with it. If it's raining, it gets really, really messy. And one of my personal projects is vibe coding an app for a phone that can very simply just display score, display who's serving. That can be then triggered by your watch.
I love it.
Because almost everyone has a smartwatch. So if you just go, you tap your watch and your score updates. And the ability to get from point 0 to point 1 with something like that is an afternoon.
Yeah.
So it really is revolutionizing. And I haven't touched code in years, right? Years. I've been more on that management side. So it is really exciting. With that, you've been on both sides of the fence, right? You have led teams developing products pre-AI, and now you're leading teams developing products leaning into AI. I know it's a hot topic because there are some people who are looking at AI as a crutch, and it's taking away the knowledge, the creativity, the individuality of the engineer, so to speak, because you just tell it what to do and it does it versus doing it yourself. How has that shift been, and what have you kind of seen? Maybe if you were to say 6 years ago, if AI were relevant, how would have that changed your job, right, and what you were doing? And then to now, what you're doing obviously probably wouldn't be possible quite the same way without AI. So how has that journey been for you?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think software development has always been, computers have always, the evolution has always been layers and layers of abstraction, right? I think of Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs building the first Apple computers, and Wozniak, building the actual hardware and the circuit boards, right? And then writing the assembly language on top of that. And then so in my career, I've seen that abstraction from taking, an assembly language program, which is horrible, software class, right? And then C++ and Java and other languages on top of that, and then moving into different roles. So moving into product management, where there's a whole another layer of abstraction between, what I'm asking for and, the engineers who are actually writing the code. And I think that might be why product people might have an easier time accepting these new tools and using them, because they're already used to using natural language to say, hey, could you move this button over there, and then doing it. And I wonder if developers 30 years ago had the same frustration and concern about losing their individuality when it came from, I'm not writing assembly code anymore, right? Or machine language to assembly code, to assembly language to C, to C, to C++, to anything. And so there's always been this evolution of these layers of abstraction. And I think I forgot the rest of your question.
What would life have looked like?
Yeah.
I think you kind of touched on it, because it was like, what would life have looked like, 6 years ago, 5 years ago, when you were leading product teams and had access to AI? How would have that changed how you approached a dev team, right? Because there are some companies who are building from ground up, but inserting AI into an existing product still is pretty difficult. The use case, how it integrates, where it's integrated to, is still a very challenging space to be in currently. So what would that maybe have looked like, knowing what it is now back then? How that shifted your
So I think there's two things. There's the tools that we can use as individual contributors or as managers, right, to communicate better and to prove out our ideas. And there's also, incorporating these capabilities of a large language model or an AI model, machine learning model of a different sort into our applications. And I think one thing that doesn't change is it all comes back to, and I touched on this earlier, right? Building products that solve problems that are meaningful for people, right? When ChatGPT first hit the public consciousness, what was that, 2 Novembers ago? There was this moment in time as a product team when, if you could figure out how to incorporate ChatGPT into your product, and get it into production, right? you got publicity and
Yep.
there was value in that. That lasted such a short amount of time when then people were like, oh, and this is absolutely useless, right? And then I think there was this sort of desert that we went through where, we hadn't quite figured out how to make these things valuable and useful in many cases. And then now we're at this stage where more and more products are built, either built on top of it or just new capabilities and functionality that are empowered because of these tools.
Right.
And that's really, AI is just another tool, right? And how do we incorporate that to, again, solve problems? But we can also have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I built this summer just for fun was a AI-powered custom greeting card generator.
Okay.
Right? And this was all vibe coded. And I vibe prompted with ChatGPT to come up with a prompt for the OpenAI API to create my caption generator for the greeting card. So you sit down and the interface asks you a few questions like, who's it for? What's your relationship with them? What are some fun facts about them? And then what's your level or type of humor? And the captions were inspired by Cards Against Humanity. And if you've ever played that game, right, you know that the humor can be, pretty wide ranging, right?
Yeah.
And I originally classified with ChatGPT's help, right, 5 levels of humor from like tame to like R-rated or X-rated, I guess.
Yeah.
And if you know the game. And when I tried to test that, I kept getting errors. And when I dug in to look at the actual error, it was, you violated our safety protocols.
Oh,
right? And then I tried, so that was level 5. Then I tried level 4 and it consistently violated the safety protocols, right? But so it had to tame it down a little bit. But then so it generates a caption, you pick a caption, then it sends it to another, to the API endpoint to now generate a prompt for the DALL-E model to create a illustration in the style of a New Yorker cartoon.
Okay, yeah.
So, and this was the one that I did. We were up in McCall. I was supposed to be packing up to come home. My wife was out for a run with the dog. And while I was packing, I built this app. And the whole interface is styled like a New Yorker cartoon, sort of black and white. And it was a blast. And there's some fun things there, right? And this is now, that's the first time that I incorporate, actually the second time that I incorporated, an AI model into something that I built. Go ahead.
I was going to say, that sounds like a heck of a lot of fun and a wonderful just experimentation that you get a lot of good use out of. I mean, just the other day for Halloween, my dad loves to send e-cards for holidays. My mom sends physical cards, which my boys love. And then my dad always sends e-cards, which I love because I don't have to worry about, recycling them or anything along those lines.
Or putting them in a drawer to save them because...
Exactly. And they're always such a delight to receive. And so something like that, where you've been able to do it with your own twist. It's not a Hallmark. It is Scott's greeting card. And you can make it as personalized or as, fun as you want and really just find what resonates with who you're sending it and yourself as well, right? No, that sounds like a hoot.
It was fun. And that was part of a broader project that I had that I gave myself this summer. As I was trying to really get into and understand what I can do with these tools. I was doing a bunch of just experimentation and playing around, and then we were with friends, and my wife and some friends were talking about this challenge through the Boise Public Library that is the Ultimate Book Nerd Challenge. Every year, the library publishes 52 categories, and the challenge is to read one book in each category during the year.
Okay, a book a week.
Yep, a book a week, right? Yeah. And they're talking about reading a book a week, right? And like, if they can read a book a week, then why can't I build an app a week?
Okay.
Right? And so I started with like a Notion database of app ideas. I'm like, well, this is silly. What if my first app is a web app where I can post challenges and people can log in, create accounts and log in and post their idea, like their apps that they built. So I built the Weekly Vibe, which is this platform for weekly vibe challenges. And I'm not a product marketing person or a marketing person, so I didn't really market it very well or very consistently. But the first week, I think there were 7 participants, and the first week challenge was Hello World.
Okay.
Right? We all know
Classic.
Hello World, classic challenge. And I put a twist on it, Hello World, but in multiple different languages.
Oh,
Right?
okay.
So I thought of this as, okay, so, Hello World in, English and French and Spanish, right? Surprisingly easy. And I mean, one shot prompt, and I had Hello World with you click a card, and then another shot prompt and another prompt, and it added in flags for each of the different languages, right?
Okay.
And I had 7 friends who all participated in this, and my favorite was a friend who took a different tact on it and created Hello World in different programming languages.
Oh, okay.
So you click, C, and you get printf statements, and right, and I'm like, that is so cool, and I'm sure he didn't even write the code for any of those languages, right? The model did. And then the next week was that greeting card thing, right? And I think I had 2 people do something that week, and then it sort of fizzled out, and I probably built 8 or 10 apps, and then I was having a hard time thinking of a new prompt, like a new challenge each week. So there was an open challenge, and one week I built in a couple of hours, an hour or 2, built a Chrome extension to parse out people's contact information from their LinkedIn profile,
Okay.
right, and feed that into a Notion database.
Right.
All of these are things that I never even would have tried a few years ago, right? And they just took me a few hours, and now I'm doing much more than that. So I think rolling back maybe to a question, the last question that you asked, right, about how things were different. One, just the ability to experiment and play, and try out new ideas. 2, the old adage that a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, if you can create a demo video of how you want the workflow to work, right, and hand that to a development team as a reference, right, it can be incredibly powerful and incredibly rich in what we're able to provide and how we're able to communicate.
Absolutely. We have really shifted in our business over the last maybe year, our tactic of building trust with new partners who we're not currently working with is providing POCs free of cost, especially when it comes to some of these larger companies that always have some need that is not ever prioritized because it's not big enough. There's not enough pain to invest money towards it. Like, hey, we'll take it on. We'll build a POC around it. So then, again, you have that physical thing to show people this is how it could look. This is how our pain could be solved real quickly. And we always were doing like 4 to 6 week POCs with, maybe 2 or 3 engineers. Now with your company and AI, you're doing probably the same exact thing in a week or in an afternoon with some of these concepts.
And then, and I think that the difference between a POC and a product depends a lot on what is your customer base, right? What's the industry in? What are your SLAs? How big is your user base, right? So I've got a client now. It's a local company, Kit, formerly known as ConvertKit. They are really a platform for online creators and to manage their newsletters and monetize their audience base. Right? Really, really fascinating company. And we're working on a new suite of functionality as a prototype that we're going to launch as a pilot later this year. And we're going to have 25 users, and it is totally separate from their production application, right? So separate data, and we're building it all with these tools. And it's me, I've come in as a consultant. The work that's been done up until this point has been with their product manager, and a UX designer, and the founder, right, CEO, all working on their spare time, right? Some of when I first saw what they were building, I'm like, holy cow! It surprised me in how robust the functionality was. Right?
Yeah.
And the goal is not to turn this into a product that they go to market with. The goal is to learn, right? And the learnings for this, they will validate, the problems that they're solving, right? They'll validate workflows. They'll be able to quickly iterate during the pilot to tweak things and improve things. That will then be a major artifact into the engineering team to build this to the level of standard for the mass of their creator environment and their subscribers, right? But we're building it now so we can learn from it. And that, I think, is so incredibly powerful and impactful for businesses. I think of, we all, as engineers, technologists, we're familiar with this concept of engineering velocity, right? Often measured in story points in a sprint, right? Story points don't mean that you're actually delivering any value, right? So maybe you measure it as, how many features did we deliver last year? Pendo did research. Pendo's a user analytics company, right? Leader in that space. They did research and they found that 80% or only 10 to 30% of features that are delivered across the industry, right, reach broad impact or broad adoption, right? Say it another way, right? 70 to 90% of features aren't actually impactful to customers, right? Now, some of them, right, you're going to deliver a feature for, a niche persona, right? You're not expecting broad adoption, right? But I think it's fair to say that 50% of the features that we deliver don't live up to our expectations.
Yeah.
Right? And a big part of that is because we built the wrong thing, right? Either we solved the wrong problem, or we built the interface or the experience is not optimized for our users, right? So going back to engineering velocity, when we think about velocity and how do we impact that, you usually think, well, we've got a bunch of tech debt. We need to improve the code so so engineers can be faster in what they write.
Right.
We need to hire more engineers so we can get more story points out or so we can deliver more features. But at the end of the day, if your team last year delivered 10 features and only 2 of them were actually successful, right? 20%. If you double your engineering spend, you'll get 4 features next year, right? But if we can instead focus on validating and learning without that spend, and then give the engineering team validated, proven concepts and requirements and designs to go build something, we can have the same engineering team and deliver, if we can double or triple the effectiveness of what we give them, now you can, with the same engineering team, you can get double your effectiveness and get 40% of your features are successful, or 50% or 60% are successful in broad appeal because you're building the right things. And you can do that so much more efficiently and cost effectively using these tools and rapidly prototyping things.
I mean, that's pretty, you say it so simply, but that's pretty revolutionary in our industry where measuring the outcome of the work that we do is one of the biggest challenges. And you said it very succinctly in terms of the number that actually have a broad impact. And it, down the line, as this is adopted even broader than it is already, I'm a little bit at a loss for words, just how much it will change. I think back to conversations that I've had with engineering teams or with stakeholders when, sharing like what we can and can't build in a certain amount of time. But just allowing the teams to be more precise, more surgical with what we take on, knowing as much as we can that it will actually make a difference. I remember of a time that we worked at Truck Stop and we were in Chicago meeting some of the engineering team, and we just went out to a truck stop to just talk
to customers.
About, are you using our application? If not, why not? Do you even know what it does? Like, do you know the advantages it brings you? And the just range of answers that we received, we sat in 2 different truck stop diners over the span of 2 days and just talked. Probably 4 hours each day, so 8 hours total with 4 of us there. The number of different answers we got was astounding. We were really hoping that we'd find at least 1 or 2 like nuggets of wisdom that we could take back and incorporate to make the product better for those who are using it. And we didn't really get that. But what you're saying now with AI is, now we get an A/B test just like marketing does. You create 2 ad copies, you see which one resonates better, performs better, and you do that low cost, increasing your precision of your team, so that 6 out of 10 features now hit the mark versus 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10. Velocity will also change, just speed of development. And I mean, personally, maybe story points will go away. That might be a very good thing personally. They were never accurate anyways. What is a story point?
I worked at a company once, and they referred to them as acorns.
Yeah. How many acorns?
Yeah. But you just touched on something, and I mean, one, like, that qualitative customer research of interviewing customers, right, can be really tricky.
Yeah.
But it's also incredibly important because it gives you a framework for further investigation and further research, right? And maybe you focus your research and you evolve your questions to ask, so you're getting different answers, but they're more similarly related. And then that can, when you start to see trends, that can then be the inspiration or the knowledge that you need to now go do something more like more of a survey or something else, and then from there maybe do an A/B test.
Yeah.
Right? And yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff, and it's a really neat time.
It is. It really is. With all of this change, you mentioned, I mean, you came to Boise 30 years ago. Back then, articles were coming out about it being the next Silicon Valley. I still think that's true. We have our anchor companies. We still have a heavy presence from HP. We have Micron investing billions of dollars in their facilities out here. But also, we've had so many small companies grow, start here, become big, and be acquired. I mean, we have Count, which you were a part of, acquired by Equifax. We had T-Sheets, acquired by Intuit. That started here. We had
Cradlepoint.
Thank you. I was thinking Oracle, but it was acquired eventually by Oracle, right?
Yep.
Or Ericsson.
Yeah.
So the Valley is kind of a proven growing ground for small businesses, and you are right in the thick of it, helping those businesses get a leg up on what will their product need to look like to become the next, T-Sheets, the next Count, so on and so forth. Why do you think that is in Boise? Why here? Why now? And where kind of do you see what possibilities do you see in the future?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, we have an incredible quality of life here in Boise, and an incredibly balance of life, right? The ability to see or hit the trails, right? Float the river, and that attracts people. And ski at Bogus Basin, and then we're just a few hours from real capital W wilderness, right? And so that attracts people and pulls people in, and it also something about this place I think fosters collaboration and helping people. I think a lot of Boise's been growing for a long time, and we're growing because people are moving here. And when you move to a new place, I think the nature of not knowing people is you've got to be friendly and meet people, right? And Boise's also always been a friendly place. I remember when we first moved here, just shocked by people saying hi when we pass them on the greenbelt, and you don't see that when you pass people on trails in other places, right? So there's part of that sort of community aspect of things. And I think we have continued to have. Well, no, I mean think about it a little bit differently. I think the other thing that is unique about Boise is we are the most isolated city of our size in the country.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're 4-6 hours from Salt Lake City, 9 hours from Portland, right? And there's no other city that's like that. We're the most isolated capital city. And what's interesting about that is on the one hand, that limits us, right? Because we don't have, hours of, another city of our size an hour away. But on the other hand, it means that we are the city that has the airport, right? The Treasure Valley is where the airport is. It is where we have a museum, we have a philharmonic, right? We have a ballet. All of these things are here that in other parts of the country would be, give or take an hour or two away. So we've got this rich culture, but also we have those things because there wasn't a ballet nearby. Yeah. So Boiseans created the Ballet Idaho, right? There wasn't a philharmonic, right? There wasn't, so we have to build these things in some sense. And then we have to lean on our partners and our friends and neighborhood stakeholders to help us build these things, right? Which there's sort of this natural entrepreneurial insight and perspective because we had to build it ourselves. Right.
Wouldn't be possible if you couldn't perform if you didn't have an audience.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then you had, absolutely, I totally get that. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And it's incredible to think about. Yeah, we had to bootstrap up everything that we created here in Boise. Because we couldn't borrow. Yeah. Just, Portland Philharmonic or what have you. Come on over and perform, or go over there and watch them perform. That makes a lot of sense. That's a lot of fun. With that community, I think one of my favorite things about Boise too is there's a lot of things that we rise to the challenge of, right? To your point, don't have this, well, let's build it. Yeah. Don't have that, let's build it. And we bring a lot of unique out-of-the-box thinking. You look at BSU Blue Turf, that's globally known. Yeah. And at some point, somebody had to have the wild idea of, hey, why green? Why not? Yep. Why not blue? And then there had to be people who are like, you know what? Why not? Let's do it. Right? And have that community support of saying yes to some crazy ideas. And then you don't know where they're going to end up. It could have just been something wacky. And, 3 years down the lane, they're like, okay, this is terrible. Let's go green. But instead it is iconic and has shaped, the image of Boise. And I think the same concept and mindset is engendered in our businesses. It's like, well, why not?
Yeah.
Other businesses have done it here. Why not us? Why not now? With that in mind, Scott, what kind of challenge do you have for the Treasure Valley? If there's a Boise challenge, whether it's vibe coding, whether it's getting involved with the community to develop new ideas with Trailhead, what would you like to see more of in the Valley? What challenge are you kind of throwing your gauntlet down?
The thing that I think is holding Boise back and has been holding Boise back is you might call it the funding landscape, but I've got it. It's not just it's the funding flywheel, right? When I recently worked for a startup in San Francisco, right? And leading a team, and everyone on the team had equity. And when it came time for the annual review, HR was monitoring that, and anyone who was more than 70% vested in their equity was considered for an additional grant.
Oh, okay.
And that is the mindset in San Francisco and Silicon Valley, right? And the impact of that is when there's a successful company, there's some people, right? There's a big chunk of those employees, particularly the early employees, who now have enough money that they can go and sit and do something for a year.
Yeah.
Right. And if a company grows and there's 500 employees and 20% of them can go do that, 10% of them can go do that. That's 50 people who are going and trying something for a year.
Right.
And if one of those turns into something that gets some traction, now the flywheel starts to spin, right? And that it then gives you, and then there's 50 companies that are all starting. So I'm going to go take a risk at this company because I know that there's a whole bunch of other companies that I can jump to, right? And I don't see that in Idaho. And I think part of it is maybe the Idaho Western pioneer like humbleness, right? Part of it is a lot of people who come here, we come here for the quality of life, right? And we're content with that, which is wonderful. But in as individuals, I mean, that's why we're here, right?
Yeah.
It's why, you know, I'm not in Silicon Valley, right? But and this is probably really controversial to be saying on this podcast, right? But you mentioned a number of companies that have had successful exits, right? It's harder to think of from those companies that have had successful exits, companies that have been built by people who participated in that exit, right? And this is also really weird for me to be saying, right? Because I'm I'm a founder and entrepreneur of a company of one, right? So sharing equity is super easy for me.
Yeah.
Right? It's, and I'm also not an investor, but I think the more that startups in Boise think and work and prioritize sharing their equity, sharing equity, right? And it may be that there's just not the employee demand for it, right? As an employee, maybe if I have the opportunity to take a pay cut, and for for an established growing company, take a pay cut, make less money now for this promise of equity that I can maybe wallpaper my house on, right? House with stock options.
Right.
Maybe just our ecosystem, people aren't willing to do that. So naturally, the market shifts to we'll pay more salary, and if we're going to pay more salary, then
I want you to stay here.
Then the owners are taking on more risk, right? But I think that until we get to a point where the successful companies that we have launch, when they have exits, they launch other startups, right? That flywheel is just not going to start to accelerate.
That makes a lot of sense. And I know a lot of people come here because it's not the Silicon Valley. Like they tried it, the hustle culture or whatever have you, the finance driven everything wasn't to their taste, and so they came here where this is kind of not that. But there has to be, I think, a happy medium. I think that makes a lot of sense. If you don't have people with the freedom to act on their ideas, because everybody has them, then they will never, right? Thoughts mean nothing until you take action on them.
Yeah.
They can't produce anything, which is, fortunate where we are now, at least because the use of AI can break down some of those barriers where you can produce something quickly in your evenings where you're not having to leave the safety of your 9 to 5, but you still have the energy and the time to craft something that you couldn't before.
Yeah. Let's talk about the elephant in the room when it comes to AI.
Yeah.
Right? And that is that you mentioned earlier, engineers being reluctant to embrace this stuff. And you listed a couple of different reasons, right? But I think that another one thing you didn't say, but I think is like, is this going to take my job away? Right?
There's always that concern,
And I mean, as a product manager, right, and a product leader, is this going to take my job away? And I mean, the nature of work is always changing, right? And we have not seen anything like this in generations, right? But what makes me really, really excited about it touches on what you just said about like trying something, like working on something, experimenting in the middle of the night. And that is the ability of individuals or really small teams to build something sustainable that wasn't financially viable before, right? And 5 years ago, if I wanted to build a product and have hundreds of users, I would need to hire an engineering team. I'd need to hire somebody on the operations, at least somebody on an operations team, right? I need to have a customer success team, right? In order to do all that, that's now a couple of $1 million in annual spend, right? I need to have a building, right? That means that I need to be able to market and find customers to pull in, $2-3 million minimum of annual revenue in order to sustain this business. Right? That means that it's only worth solving problems that you can make millions of dollars on. But there are a whole bunch of problems that will really impact individuals and society that might not have that big of a total addressable market or that big of a revenue pie. So what if I, as one person, could build a software application with a bunch of AI agents, could build a software application and launch it to a couple of hundred users, right? Mm-hmm. I don't need $2.5 million in annual revenue. I mean, that would be great, right? But I just need my salary and expenses, and enough to grow. And this may seem like, it's there's no way you could build a product and launch a product and like scale it and make that revenue. But there's this concept in the in tech, and I think Sam Altman sort of popularized it this year. It's been around in the last year. It's been around for longer than that. But the idea of a solopreneur who's built and launched a unicorn, right? That's one person, a whole bunch of AI agents building a company that's now worth $1 billion, right? To do that, you need to have a couple $100 million in annual revenue to get that valuation, right?
Right.
And if like people who are smarter than I am are saying that that's possible, then it's possible for thousands or 1 million individuals or small teams to go solve problems that are really impactful for society, and then make a living and give back. Maybe the company grows, and they can now do more with that and go spin off and build something else.
Yeah, the level of impact for quality of life is massive. We talk about the slice of pie, those underserved industries that nobody really looks at because, one, they're either difficult to solve for, or there's not enough pie to go around, so you don't even try. But now, someone who has a passion for that space can be like, I'm going to take this on. Sure, it's not going to be millions of dollars every year, but it will cover me, my costs, and my hosting costs and whatnot. And then they're able to touch 10, 15 lives. And we talked about the flywheel of investors. It's the same concept. It's like, well, if you make 5 other people's lives better, then that's one less thing they have to worry about. They can go off, make 5 people's lives better, and then it's exponential. It's incredible. That's exciting. Scott, I really appreciate you sharing this time with me today. We covered a broad swath of topics all over the place. And so I really appreciate your insights from your history as well as what you're up to today with Product 208. I think the future is absolutely bright for the Treasure Valley, but also for our industry as a whole, and what we've talked about of the impact that we can really make in this world. Any final comments that you want to make before we end our conversation today?
I think you just mentioned back again to the Treasure Valley and the impact. And I love what you said about people working on ideas in their spare time. And it is now so much, the barriers to entry are so much lower than they were before. And we have a lot of creative and passionate people and neighbors and colleagues. And, go build something meaningful. And if you don't know how, then just go grab one of these tools. Most of them have a free month, right? And just start building something, right? And that's what was so powerful for me was that with that, trying to build an app a week, was it got the gears in my brain moving. It got me using different tools and seeing what was possible. And then, I've got some other ideas that I didn't talk about that I think are viable businesses. And there's just a lot of opportunity, and I'm really excited about it. Yeah. But thank you so much for having me on today. It was great to be here.
Awesome. Thank you again. And excited for where you're going with your company. And I'm sure we'll be in touch because it's a small valley. Yeah, definitely. So we'll all be around.
Yep. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks for watching this In Time Tech podcast. If you'd like to learn more about what we can offer you, please visit our website, intimetech.com, where you'll be able to see the different capabilities and technologies we could provide you in your business. Also, don't forget to subscribe and follow us to get more amazing content like this. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.